Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Susan Checkow-Lusignan, Director of Marketing and Program Development for the Friends and Foundation of the Rochester Public Library. We welcome you to Tuesday Topics. We are live streaming the formal portion of today's program to the library's YouTube channel. If you're looking to access the induction loop in this auditorium, please adjust your hearing aid to the T switch. The Friends and Foundation of RPL raises funds, presents programs, supports special projects, helps to create specialized spaces, and purchases supplemental materials and equipment for the Rochester Public Library. Our thanks go to the dedicated FFRPL committee members who curate and organize these events, our guest speakers and artists who so graciously share their time and talents with us, the library staff who help with our setup and production, and the thousands of people who attend throughout the year. Our Tuesday Topics series this winter focuses on some of the many important but lesser known services and resources that the library provides to our community. Since we will hear about some of the library's many initiatives related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we'd like to note that throughout February, the library recognized Black History Month with extensive programming and highlighted resources. You can still see the art of Louise's Daughter, featuring artists Cheryl and Don Olney, in the Arts and Literature Division across the street in the Rundell Building. You can also still see several movies being featured as part of Central's Black Film Festival, the Gribble, Lusk, and York Band this Friday with live music following the film, Blackula this Saturday, and Georgia, Georgia on Monday. And you could find information on these films on the library's electronic calendar posted to the website, rockcitylibrary.org. And we also have printed flyers with information for you in the back of the room for the Black Film Festival. Our presenter today is Antoine McDonald. Antoine is a librarian in Central's Local History and Genealogy Division, and he will provide an overview of how the library helps to foster diversity, equity, and justice in our society with diverse cultural community representation in programs and services, specifically related to Central's Archive of Black History and Culture project. Please join me in welcoming Antoine to our podium.
Thank you, Susan, for that introduction. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to come and attend this Tuesday Topic Talk and listen to me. I appreciate you guys. And special thanks to the Rochester Public Library for making this possible and for being committed to doing this work. So as Susan stated, my name is Antoine McDonald. I am one of the reference librarians in the Local History and Genealogy Division, and I've been here at the Rochester Public Library since 2017 working as a librarian. And so I'm happy to be back here today for a Tuesday Topic series. I was able to, in 2021, my direct supervisor, Christine Radarski, and I were able to speak for the Tuesday Topic series. And we were able to lay the groundwork for what it was that we wanted to do with this project. We were able to outline our intentions with this project and our vision moving forward. And it's been amazing to see the progress that we've made in the 3 years since that time. I'm sorry, the 2 to 3 years, the progress we've made since our first time speaking for Tuesday Topics. And so we're really happy to be back here today and give you guys an update on the developments we've made with the archive. So the Archive of Black History and Culture, this project is derived from a larger project called the Documenting, Preserving, and Improving Access to Local Collections project. And our idea behind that project is to create an archive dedicated primarily to local Black history and culture here in the Rochester area. We know that Rochester is a place rich in history, rich in experiences, and so we wanted to document that as a leading educational institution in the community. With this archive, we want to have both a physical and digital presence in the community. We want to be a resource that people can use and utilize as researchers, as students, as educators, and we want to be able to do that in a way that is convenient for all of our residents here in Rochester. And we think the best way to do that is to have both a physical and digital presence in the community. And so overall, the primary goal of the archive is to repair the historical record. And what I mean by repair the historical record, as we know throughout time, there have been many underrepresented and underdocumented populations, not just in Rochester, but in the country and in the world overall. And so as a white-led educational institution, we wanted to acknowledge the role that we have played in establishing the landscape that currently exists. In our collections, in our records, there are many gaps that do not cover many indigenous populations of color. And so over time, these were decisions that were made sometimes by accident, sometimes intentional. And so we want to play an active role, be an active participant in righting those wrongs, basically. And so, as I said before, the purpose of the archive is to repair the historical record by taking action to ensure that the historical stories that we tell about the greater Rochester community and the resources that we use to tell those stories are better reflective of our residents and tell a full, encompassing story. And we want to do that in a way that documents history, not only that has happened, but history that is also happening. And we want to do that in a trusted, neutral space of the library. Like I said before, we know that there has been traditionally stigmas and biases that currently exist in our archives. And so we wanted to do the work to not only acknowledge that and do the work moving forward, but also do the work moving backwards as well, and taking a look at things that currently existed in not only our library, but just in the Rochester community. So just a little background history on things that led up to this project. The Rochester Public Library, the Local History Genealogy Division, we started a project where we were conducting oral history interviews at the public market back in 2020. And we also were doing that with the Clarissa Street Reunion Committee, as well as Teen Empowerment, some of our community stakeholders. And these ideas and those experiences, we realized that there was a lot of rich stories out there in the community that we wanted to capture and that we wanted to highlight. Also in 2020, we know that there was the unfortunate event with Daniel Prude, and that resulted in a lot of protest and social justice movements here in our community. As an archival institution, we were approached to help document some of those instances as they were happening, and we realized that we didn't really have a place for those things. And so those were some of the ideas or concepts that helped to start the idea of developing an archive for local Black history and culture. And one of the first things that we wanted to do when we decided that we would take this on as a long-term project was take a look at ourselves. We wanted to start in-house and start taking a look at our collections, take a look at our collection policies, take a look at our finding aids, and basically start in-house and move forward. In order to do that work, we comprised an internal advisory team comprised of both professional, paraprofessional staff from the Rochester Public Library, and we were able to review over 200 finding aids. If you're not familiar with what a finding aid is, it's basically a document that gives you a precursor to what a collection encompasses in terms of what materials are held within that collection. And so we were able to review over 200 finding aids. We were able to review and update our collection policies for the Local History and Genealogy Division. And we were also able to make recommendations for improvements to our collection policy moving forward. And all of that work was done by a combination of RPL staff. And so that was, a really great opportunity to take a look inward and have a great discussion about, where we've been, what we're currently doing, and what we want to do moving forward. So that was done during the first phase of our project. And, you know, since then, we've been able to make a lot of progress. I mentioned before that we did previously speak for Tuesday Topic Series. And also in 2021, we were able to raise close to $10,000 for this project to support our work moving forward. You know, so that's just a little background of, you know, where we were, and now I'll go into kind of where we are currently. Currently, we're in the phase 2 of the documenting, preserving, and improving access to local history collections project. And in the phase 2 of this project, our primary goal was to really get out into the community. Like I said before, we started internally, and our goals now are to really get out into the community and connect with our community stakeholders, connect with our previous partners, and really get a sense of what the community want in terms of needs and desires. In order to do this work, we wanted to comprise an advisory board comprised of community members, people who have lived and worked in the Rochester community, both the east side, the west side, and people who can have firsthand knowledge and provide firsthand experience of the history here in Rochester. Some of the work that we're going to be doing in phase 2 will be to identify materials that remain in private or institutional hands, identifying those materials, identifying which materials should be preserved, and establishing processes to make sure that those are done in the appropriate way. Our community advisory board is currently comprised of 10 members, community members, and they will serve for a duration of 1 year. And some of the goals of our community advisory board members will also be to connect with community stakeholders, identify themes and organizations, as well as individuals significant to Rochester's Black history, identify and assess community needs and desires through a series of surveys, as well as develop a project mission statement, vision statement, and strategic plan. So I did want to acknowledge the 10 members of our community advisory board. So before I do that, I'll talk a little bit about the work that went into developing this board. As the project manager, I was tasked with developing a rubric to identify our applicants. We put out an application into the community for people to join our advisory board, and we received over 40 applicants. And so we were really happy with the interest that resulted from our application being circulated in the community. And from 41 applicants, we had the task to narrow it down to only 10. And in order to do that, I was able to put together an interview committee who was responsible for interviewing all of our applicants and grading them and scoring them based on a rubric that we developed, and basically ultimately selecting our 10 board members. And so this was a long, tiring process. We sat through almost 16 interviews of our 41 applicants, and some of our interview and selection committee members are here in the audience today. And so again, I thank you for your work during that time. And so ultimately, after all of that work, we finalized on a strong 10 members that I would like to briefly acknowledge. So those 10 members are Calvin Eaton, Carolyn Blunt, Darian Lehman, Ernesta Walker, Jean Pryor, Mauricio Combs, Quana Joseph Muhammad, Rodney Allen Young, Shantira Mitchum, and Xavier Holliday. It was important for us to really reach out into the community and really have a grassroots representation, if that makes sense. And so our board is comprised of young people, recent U of R graduates. Our board also features our elder members of our community, and primarily comprised of people of color, but we do have other members as well on our board. And so we're really looking forward to the work that our board will be able to do moving forward, and connecting with the community and really engaging to push this project forward in a positive way. One other thing that I wanted to touch on was the trainings and stuff that we provided for our internal team, as well as our current advisory board, as well as just other people in the Rochester Public Library system. We were able to provide trainings on the basics of archives, on doing preservation work in the Black community, working with Black materials, and we believe that that training opportunity was very helpful and very insightful for all of our participants, because it really helped to lay the groundwork for what it means to really dig deep in archive work in terms of collection development, preservation of materials, identifying materials, and things of that nature. As I mentioned before, the Rochester Public Library and the Community Advisory Board will work with our community partners to identify which record holders we would like to work with and partner with, and also develop plans to ensure that our materials are well preserved and made publicly accessible. Some of the work that we're doing right now in this effort, we're working with a whole host of community partners, and so I also briefly wanted to mention some of the community partners that we've been able to collaborate with. The Rochester Regional Library Council, the Urban League of Rochester, the City of Rochester, the Mayor's Office have been a great supporter in the work that we've been doing here with the archive. Teen Empowerment, Clarissa Street Reunion Committee, as I've mentioned before, the Black Community Focus Fund, the BOCES Project, and I think this is just a testament to the commitment that we've had to really reach out into the community and make sure that this information is known outside of just our immediate network here at the library. And so I also just want to briefly talk on the work that we're going to be doing moving forward, and some of the goals and major outcomes of this project. We hope to, like we said, we hope to repair the historical record. And again, what I mean by repair the historical record is making sure that our collections are more encompassing of what's actually happening in the community. We want to make sure that the stories that we tell and the resources that we use to tell those stories actually and accurately reflect the residents of our community, because in the past it's sometimes been leaning a little bit too much in one direction and not really covered across all boards. So we hope that this project will result in the identification and preservation of important new historical assets through existing partnerships with community members. We hope to reach new individuals and new organizations. We do already have a long list of community partners, but we hope to expand on that list. We hope to expand our networks and ultimately make our collections a bit more inclusive. Another outcome is a more equitable historical narrative. We want the community to feel that they have an invested interest in what's happening here at the library. We want people to feel included in the work that we're doing here, which is why we've been very adamant to really reach out into the community and work with those that are interested in working with us, as well as fostering interest in those who may not have had a previous interest in working with the library. We also want to encourage conversations about the past and its connections to the present. We want to help normalize the dialogue about race and racism and create a more inclusive place within the community. Again, this concept of making connections with the past and the present, with our young people and our elders in the community. And that's something that we've seen, we've been able to experience with the Teen Empowerment Project. We were doing digitization with young people and elders, and that project was really, really successful, and we're looking forward to continuing that kind of work where we're able to bring in young people and bring in the youth in the work that we're doing, and hopefully getting them interested in not only the history of Rochester, but in just the work of the library and the work of the archive. We want to provide the opportunity for the community's Black residents to exercise their voice and determine how their history is preserved and collected and ultimately shared. We want to give the community a sense of agency over what happens with their records and how their records are displayed and ultimately used as a resource. We also want to really focus on access and convenience. One of the ways we want to do that is by developing a centralized, publicly accessible database for our archive. And again, I talked about the archive, having both a physical and digital presence. That is so we can check off all those boxes in terms of access. We live in a digital world. We live in an evolving society where convenience is very, very important. People want to be convenienced when they're accessing information. And that's something that as a reference librarian, I can definitely relate to, being able to present information to people in a way that's most convenient for them. And so that's something that we really want to focus on in our work here in the archive. We want to have a database where people can come in one stop and see where all the history collections are held in Rochester. Is it held in our libraries, our archives, our museums, or any other cultural heritage organizations such as churches and things like that? We want to be a resource where people can come and go and find out whatever they need to find out and basically have a path moving forward. Again, as I stated, we want to develop a mission and vision statement, a collection policy for the library's proposed archive. Again, this is work that's going to last long after I'm here. And we want to think progressively, 15, 20 years from now, how can this archive guide the community in the work that it will be doing? How can this archive serve as a resource to the library 15, 20 years from now? And so we really want to think long term and think progressively in our work today to lay the groundwork for what we're going to be doing 20, 30 years from now. We envision the archive to serve as a staple in the Rochester community. We want people to say, hey, did you visit the archive of local Black history and culture at the library? Hey, if you're in Rochester, you definitely need to check out the archive down at the library. So we hope that our work and our effort will ultimately create a legacy here in Rochester that lasts a lifetime. Again, some of the outreach that we've done in the community to reach out to our networks, to expand our networks, to bring in our elders, to bring in our young people. That's something that we've really focused on in this project thus far. Again, we've been able to work with organizations such as Teen Empowerment, the Urban League of Rochester, City of Rochester. We've also been in the reach outside of Rochester. We was able to work with the Nomadic Archivist Project, which is out of New York City, to provide some archival theory and training opportunities for our participants in this work. And again, it's resulted in numerous different projects that are all kind of working simultaneously alongside of each other that will ultimately meet an ending point, which is our archive. Some of those projects that are separate but also related are we're working with Midge Thomas, the wife of Freddie Thomas, to preserve her husband's papers. Working with the daughter of Charles Price, the first African-American police officer, to document her father's papers. We worked with Joan Howard Coles, the daughter of Howard Coles, to document her father's papers and things of that nature. So this is an ongoing project. There are many moving parts, and we're just really, really happy and excited to have the support of the Rochester Public Library, of our director, Patty, of our RPL board, by way of Dick Hamilton, who was present at our first board meeting. And so our board is just really, really excited to get started on all the work that we have ahead of us. And so I can go on for days and days about some of the work that we've been doing, but I'll rest there if we have any questions.
I think, Antoine, before I ask if there are questions from the audience, Can you give us just a general idea? Obviously, everyone thinks of the library as having books and sometimes DVDs. When you talk about the archive and the resources, what that entails? Is that all articles? Is it books?
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the library as an archival institution, we primarily focus on papers. So we don't really too often collect many, tangible items. We save those things for the museums and some of the larger institutions. So here at the library, we primarily focus on like pictures, images, papers, and things like that for our collections. And we do have other materials outside of that. We also focus on video and audio files, some of the older forms of materials like microfiche, microfilm, and so those are the things that we're going to be looking for in the community as well. So for individuals and organizations such as churches, businesses, we're going to be looking for records that they may have from their time or their work in the community. So things that fall under the category of ephemera, such as program flyers, tickets, things of that nature are the things that we're going to be looking for. Family heirlooms in the form of papers or documents, pictures, video. Those are the things that we're looking to collect. Those are the things that we primarily collect here in the local history department. And so we're also going to be working with our special collections librarian, Brandon Fest, to assess what it is that we can collect in reality. There's a lot of interesting things that exist out there, and we would love to have it all, but in reality, we do need to define and develop a very specific scope of what kind of materials we do want to collect, so that way we're not just in the community collecting any and everything. We do want to have a consistency across the board. And so I think that is pretty much in line of what we've been doing here at the Local History and Genealogy Division. And so we do want to stay consistent to what we've done, but we also do want to be on the lookout for new opportunities as well.
I think Barbara, you had a question?
Is the geographical parameter just the city of Rochester, or are you looking beyond those city limits?
So, that is a question that we've definitely discussed in depth. And so primarily we are focusing on the city of Rochester, but as we know, the story isn't packaged neatly in the city of Rochester. The story of Black history does expand out into our suburb areas of Rondequoit, Greece, Henrietta, as well as even further, Dansville, Mumford, some of the surrounding areas. So we definitely want to focus on the greater Rochester area that picks up some other areas within Monroe County as well. But we don't want to move so far out as to like Buffalo, Syracuse, things of that nature. So just really the greater Rochester area.
Have you been working with the local radio station? What is it,
WDKX. Yeah, so we have made plans to work with WDKX and some of the other broadcast stations, such as 105.5 The Beat, WXXI, and even some smaller radio broadcast networks to not only figure out which materials they have, but also helping out with marketing and advertising of our efforts and our goals to the community. We know that just marketing and networking in our immediate library network is not always enough. We need to reach out to different entities to really get the word out there. And so in addition to working with those entities for to preserve their materials and to learn from them, we also want to work with those entities as well to get our message out there. And speaking of the radio stations, we also want to work with some of the smaller newspapers here in Rochester, not just the Democrat and Chronicle, but the city newspaper, the Minority Reporter, Dave McCleary, and some, just any news or media outlet here in the Rochester area. We really want to be able to permeate, at every level and through every demographic here in Rochester.
I had an experience relating to what you're doing. The radio station had a 50th anniversary, I don't know, 10 years ago. And they had a concert at the Eastman Theater. And I volunteered to usher for that. And it was an experience that I have never had before. Every seat in the auditorium, and that was before they did the renovation, so there were 3,000 seats.
Wow.
And they were full of the Black community. And it was an exciting experience for me. And they were, the larger Black community was very much involved in that, but I find in the ordinary run of RPO concerts, I continue as an usher. The Black community has a very small presence for RPO. Even a couple of weeks ago, we had a fabulous concert where all of the music, the soloists, and all the composers was all from the Black world. And we had a few more people from the community represented, but I fear that RPO doesn't know how to reach the Black community, and they need help. Maybe you could help them.
Absolutely. So you touched on a couple of different points that are definitely important. And so we thank you for volunteering at that event for your service, and we thank you for sharing today. And so, yes, that's very true. The RPO, the Rochester Public Library, and many white-led institutions in our community do have a problem with reaching out to the Black community and really incorporating them into their work and their service in a meaningful and long-term way. So that's something that a lot of large institutions are difficulty navigating that space. And so, we are fortunate and happy that the library is taking a lead to do this kind of work, to acknowledge that we've had difficulty in that area and make a plan to combat that difficulty. One thing that I wanted to mention before is that, this work has not been done previously in the Rochester community. I know back in 2002, 2003, the Rochester Science Museum did a similar exploration in the community for the Asian Pacific Islander community, but it wasn't done for the Black community. And so this is a new territory that we're embarking on. And so for the library to be brave enough to take that first step is very admirable. But we do understand that there's much, much more work to be done. And so in regards to the RPO, I was actually in attendance at that concert last week. And so I've noticed, this is my second time of attending the RPO in the past couple months, when I've never attended prior in the past, and I'm a Rochester native. And so I know that both of those initiatives were results of targeted marketing on behalf of the RPO. This most recent one, I think, was in celebration of Black History Month. And the previous one was in conjunction with the Rochester's Divine Nine organization, which are representatives of all the Black Greek letter organizations here in Rochester. And so they were able to reach out to the Divine Nine Council and create a partnership that, you know, resulted in a little bit more attendance from members of the Black community. And so, like I said, I've been twice in the past couple months, and I plan to attend some more in the future. And just a side note, outside of the library, as a librarian, I started a literacy organization in 2022, and where I do a book club for young people every other Saturday. And so in attendance at the previous RPO concert, I was able to connect with the president of the RPO and start a discussion to basically provide some type of opportunity for my book club organization and our youth to attend the RPO and receive some education materials from the RPO, and for my youth to attend a concert. And so, you know, that's not the end all be all, but I will say that I think in the climate that we're in now, post Black Lives Matter movement, post some of the unfortunate murders that have happened in the country, that, you know, a lot of our white-led institutions are starting to realize the benefit in this work and starting to realize the long-term as well as monetary benefits of this work. And so, you know, I think that it's only up from here. And I think that, you know, the examples that I listed show how organizations like the Rochester Public Library and the RPO are at least committed to working. And I think that's what's most important.
Yes, I would just like to say, I worked with the RPO for 5 years up until a year ago, and prior to that I was a volunteer for 30 doing different things. So I'd just like to say that, like most arts organizations, GFL, all the rest, ever since the Daniel Crew, how do I describe that, incident, whatever, they have been reaching out and all different kinds of things. So if people don't attend, it's almost like anything else, a certain type of music, like, you know, like I have a friend that goes to every 80s concert that comes here, because hardly any do, but she sees them other, you know, so you have to support. And so, you know, no one's saying, why don't I go to the Red Wings, you know, why am I not going, what's my barrier or whatever, you know? So I'm just saying, if the RPO was there, attend, go. You know, they've been ready to go backwards.
Yeah, it's I think you know, that's definitely a great point, that, you know, these things are here in the community, and it's up to you know, our community residents to take advantage of these opportunities. Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned the barriers. There are many barriers that prevent residents from partaking in the community as an active participant, for many different reasons. And ultimately, I think that, you know, it's not just about you know, putting on a performance, putting on a concert for Black people or playing Black music, but it's really about, you know, permeating through that organization. Because Black people don't want to just show up to concerts and listen to music. We also want to be employed. We also want to have, you know, fair wages and benefits that, you know, are on par with our white counterparts. And so, you know, the concerts and the fun stuff are great, but we also want to have the, you know, the stuff on the back end. You know, are we being employed by the RPO? What are our employment numbers from the RPO? What is the board makeup? What is the diversity makeup of the board? You know, what materials are the RPO presenting to the community? What organizations are they donating to? Are they giving back to? What organizations are they accepting money from? So, you know, there's many other categories to show and highlight your commitment and your efforts to diversity, more than just putting on Black concerts.
And that friend is an 80s concert this year, so I made sure to tell her herself.
Okay.
Are there other public libraries doing this kind of work?
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that. So, in the Rochester community, I'm not aware of any public libraries that are necessarily leading this work. There are public libraries who are, you know, constantly holding, you know, Black-focused programs or programs that provide education in that area for Black history, such as the Arnett branch, the Phyllis Wheatley branch, the Sully branch, even some of our town libraries, the Brighton Library, the Henrietta Library, I know are all doing programs in this area. But I think, you know, for the level that we're doing here, I think this would be one of first of its kind in this area and to this magnitude, I would say. But it and ran by a man by the name of Odell Winfield, and Odell Winfield is a New York City native who spent a lot of time in Poughkeepsie, New York, and started the African Roots Library and Cultural Center, I think is the full name, which currently exists in Poughkeepsie, New York. And so this was something that was brought to my attention by our director, Patty, and actually one of our 10 board members, Ernesta Walker, is a longtime friend of this man, Odell Winfield. And so I've been able to personally connect with him and speak with him about, you know, his work starting the African Roots Library in Poughkeepsie. And so we're really looking forward to working with him and gaining some insight on the work that we're going to be doing here in Rochester.
We've just been talking about public libraries. I'm interested to know the university libraries in our area. Do some of them have somewhat similar collections, and are you coordinating with them or connecting with them at all?
Absolutely. So, you know, you have U of R, RIT, some of the larger institutions, and so they each do have collections that document or focus on local Black history. To my knowledge, none of them have an entire archive dedicated to that topic. And so one of the ways that we've been able to coordinate with them with the help of the Rochester Regional Library Council was to survey our historical repositories, libraries, museums, archives for materials that currently exist. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to do work that's already been done. And so before we even started our work, it was important for us to gauge what's currently in existence, what's currently out there in the community. And part of that process was surveying educational institutions and academic libraries. I come from an academic library background, and so that definitely was of interest for me. And so that's kind of where we started our work before we even started doing anything here at the library.
The gentleman was talking about putting in the media, helping the media do things. I would like to see a lot of this on the news. We hardly see anything going on in the library in Rochester on the news stations and the media. And there's a lot of different radio stations in the city of Rochester besides the DKS. Black people do listen to other radio stations. And so it would be good if it was on DKS, but it would also be good if it was on other radio stations also. It was in on the news. You can see that on the news, 24 hours a day, we see somebody got killed, or somebody robbed someone 24 hours a day. So these kind of things we should see on the news all the time also. We do go, I went to the concert also at the RPO, and we do go to different things besides Black related, maybe part Black related. We do things in the community, and I've been here over 70 years. I don't remember the RPO really know backwards. Maybe they did, I just didn't know it for different things. So I think there's a lot of things we can do that's not projected right at the Black community, but at all the community, because we are the community. We listen to different stations, we be around different people, we do different things, so it doesn't have to be targeted right at the DKX or right at Blacks, what Blacks do and see. It could be the whole community. Because we do branch out in the city.
Absolutely. Yeah, just to echo that, you know, statement. You know, it was important for us to, like I said, we want to focus on the Black community, but, you know, the Black existence is not a singular existence. It's very multifaceted, and so we want to make sure that we capture all those different facets of that experience. LGBT experience, the disabled experience, for people who weren't necessarily started out here in Rochester, the migrant experience, the young experience, the elder experience. So really just bringing all of those experiences together. It's a gambit of knowledge, a gambit of value, and just really capturing that and presenting it in a way that is accessible, is clear, is understandable, and is fun. It's not always have to be academic focused. It could just be fun and feel good as well. So yes, that's something that we definitely want to stress moving forward.
Do you have a final question for Antoine? Then we'll let you step down. Antoine, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.